I had some really good conversations, and it got me thinking that, it'd be a good idea for me to speak upon this. So in the video, I'm going to explain why I think Black British music has been the most innovative in the past 30 years, and I bet you'll agree with me by the end of it. So 30 years ago, it was the 90s, 1995, yeah? So let's talk about the UK's contributions to music since the 90s then. We've got to talk about jungle. Jungle is the first Black British genre that we created. It kind of got started in the 90s and peaked in like 95, and since then, we've had drum and bass, UK garage, grime, dubstep, UK funky, Afro swing. So that's 7 brand new genres since the 90s. 7 distinct brand new sounds that did not exist before the 90s. So let's talk about America since the 90s and what they've done. Hip hop was already an established genre, and since the 90s, it's gone from boom bap, alternative hip hop, trap, mumble rap, Chicago drill, and there's also been developments in R&B as well. We had that classic 90s R&B, 2000s R&B, and later in the night we got that trap-infused R&B. A big American innovation came in the form of auto-tune, and when it comes to new genres, trap, EDM, fusion, Jersey club, footwork, and neo-soul. All in all, since the 90s, the most of American innovation has been in hip-hop and R&B, and they've only given us like 4 new genres, max. That is no less of an accomplishment, but it's a different one, yeah? In my opinion, American innovation when it comes to music peaked in the 2000s. In the 2000s, we got UK garage, UK funky, dubstep, grime in about 10 years or so alone. That's crazy. And when it comes to global impact, apart from house, which is an American genre, jungle, drum and bass, UK garage, two-step in particular, dubstep, have all influenced electronic music, EDM in a major way. Dance music now is pretty much watered down drum and bass and UK garage anyway. And we all know what dubstep did in 2010s. And please note, I didn't include drill because it's a bit techie. By name, it's an American genre, but modern drill was copying UK production. Let's be real. But, listen, I'm not trying to start arguments. 7.5 new genres in 30 years is crazy work. Yeah, especially from a population that only really started making original sounds in the 90s, and whose population only really came and started forming really like larger communities in the UK from about 1948. That's less than 80 years. We've only just got started, really. Look, man, I'm only the messenger, so get me, but the proof is in the pudding. Drop a comment.
Oh, I get it now. It's about a competition, but no one told Black Americans. I didn't know we were competing. This shows you the level of desperation that these people are involved in. Black Americans never competed with anybody. We never set out to say we want to be better than Black Brits or Africans or any other group of Black people in the diaspora. This guy's literally talking about genres that no one's ever heard of. And if you haven't heard of them in America, that means it's not popular. If you haven't made it in America, then what you're doing means nothing. See, you guys are frustrated at us because the world regards what we have done for over 100 years musically. You guys are frustrated that the world embraced it, loved it, copied it. And no one is doing that with your genres like that. You're tired of the fact that Black Americans are still regarded as the blueprint of Black excellence. You think there should be a change in that. And so you levy these attacks on us through the diaspora wars out of frustration. What it shows to me is an inferiority complex that you guys are dealing with. We're not competing with you. All you got to do is produce. Create culture, create fads, create slangs, create the things that Black Americans have done in order to put yourself in the eyes of the global community. You guys haven't done that. You need to work harder. This idea of trying to compete with us, you'll never will be able to get to a point where you'll be able to amass the accomplishments, the type of accomplishments that Black Americans have done in this country. This diaspora war issue is very multi-layered, as we all know. You know, we're talking about competition, we're talking about jealousy and envy, and we can't leave out delusion. So what you have here is this South African woman who had the nerve to say that Black American culture comes from South Africa. Now, I wish I could play the audio. Unfortunately, there's copywritten music in the background, so I can't play it. But what I will do is tell you what she said. I will leave the link in the description so that you can view the video for yourself and actually hear it in her own voice. So let's do it. So here it is. Quote, I think the African American community shares a lot of similarities with South Africans. Soul music is straight from South Africa. You cannot tell me otherwise. Have you heard South Africans sing? Have you seen the bodies on South African women? It's like African Americans mirror South African women. They mirror South African culture. I think South Africa has the most influence on African American culture than any other African country. But I don't even think, I think the slaves came from West Africa, but who knows? But I think South Africa has more cultural influence on African Americans than any other African country. End quote. You can't make this up. Delusion. Well, you know how I do. I always got to show receipts. Here is the real history of who influenced who.
There's no talking about South African music without mentioning the 1-4-5 progression or the 1-4-1-5 progression. All the songs that I've mentioned have different South African styles, but they all pretty much use the 1-4-1-5 progression. You can almost think of it as like the African American blues. Think about how many melodies that have been written over the blues. Sunny Moon for Two, Straight No Chaser, Blues for Gwen, Now's the Time. Well, for us, it's pretty much the same thing, except we use the 1-4-5 progression. South African music has a rather large history, and this comes through in the music. But in my very youthful music career, what I have found that has really stood out for me is how South African musicians have always been enthusiastic about African American jazz. And I have my own theories about it, and I can back them up. We've had much criticism about being obsessed with bebop and just the American culture in general. I mean, how could you not? It's always in our faces. But I think it's more than that. This sort of imitation and interest in African American style can be looked at from as early as the Manhattan Brothers in the 1950s. The Manhattan Brothers were a group of 4 male singers, sort of like singers in closed harmony style.
Yemi uJake Ntuli neManhattan Brothers siyanibulisa nonke nina abantu belizwe lase-Afrika.
And they were said to be really interested in American vocal groups like the Ink Spots, the Mills Brothers. They particularly loved the Mills Brothers. In fact, their goal was to imitate them exactly. Louis Radebe Peterson, their first professional accompanist, stated once in an interview that whenever a record would come out, they would buy it and he would painstakingly sit at the piano and try to figure out exactly what these groups were doing, and so as to imitate them exactly. Even their style, even their way of dress, the way that they sang, this is what they wanted to do. South Africa is very interesting. It's like being African for a long time is sort of like, it's not a cool thing. When you sort of imitate styles from abroad, you almost are elevated. And I think that is the reason for a lot of their success, is because they were able to imitate these American groups so well. Of course, over time, they did get some criticism because it was like they were going overseas and then they would sing what Americans were singing. And obviously, you cannot do a style that is not your own and expect to do it better than the people who were born there. But the point here that I'm trying to make is that we can't really talk about South African jazz particularly without talking about the huge interest that we've always had with African American songs. And this brings me to this idea of black solidarity, which this idea I got from another South African musician who I asked about this topic, and he told me that for him it's solidarity. It's seeing us in them. We are all black people, and the music speaks to us. The music is home. There's something about the way that other black people play, particularly African Americans, something in the way in which they put their music together that sort of speaks to us. We're all black. There's nothing different. It's just a different part of the diaspora.
This particular back and forth is between an American who is pictured at the bottom and the two at the top are Black British. They are the hosts of this particular podcast. The lady on the top left is the one who famously said Africans have their own version of soul food. She jokes about it now, saying that she got really roasted for making that comment. But this particular discussion dealt with the Africanization of Essence Fest. I'm sure we all know about that, right? That's a big story. The American picture was actually explaining that she doesn't mind inclusion. However, she felt that the organizers of this year's event went out of their way to make it more about African heritage. The woman on the top right had an attitude pretty much during the whole conversation. She seemed to be unmoved by the fact that many Americans voiced concerns about the direction of Essence Fest. In this particular clip, she clearly is irritated about the fact that Black Americans are seen as the blueprint of Black excellence. This is how you know that they see the Diaspora Awards as a matter of competition. Again, I didn't know we were competing. Watch how quick she is to say that they were creating culture as well. No one that I know ever said anything about whether Black Brits or anybody of the diaspora weren't creating culture. This creation and influence thing is really getting under the skin of the Black diaspora. Check it out.
And things like that. So we will come back to that question. But I think what you're saying, because I think it was Kyson that famously said that Black Americans have no culture. That's what's a recent kind of soundbite. I disagree with that. I definitely understand that there's a Black American culture that's been transported. I know, I can see it. I've watched enough TV and film and read books to know there's a core tradition, from jumping the broom to the way that you guys do Thanksgiving to Kwanzaa to all the things that, though they have other, as Nana was saying, identifiable influences from outside, from the diaspora, there's a core way of doing things that I know is specifically Black American, and that has evolved from all the amalgamation of what you guys have experienced and deemed in culture. And yes, there are things that we as Black people around the world, because the marketing and the visibility of Black American and first of all American, because this is focused on Black Americans, but
but the way they push it out, they make it seem like it's just American, and a lot of the stuff is from our neighborhoods, from our culture, but they don't, when they're selling it, when they're selling this thing, they often don't put the source of where they got it from.
We as Black people can discern that. I think we know, because there's white culture and white American culture, which even white UK people are like, America is the Mecca for a lot of us. It's been sold to all of us. That's why we have our actors, our business people will go to America. That's the land of opportunity, the land of the free, whatever the case. That has been sold to all of us. But as Black people, we know the brainwash that white folks do. We hone in on what relates to us. So Black American culture being the loudest, the proudest, the most visible in the way that we market it, that's what we align with, because that's what gets fed back to us. So when we didn't have British Black stuff on TV or British Black books to consume in the way that I could go and get a Black book about America, that's my way of at least having something that speaks to me and what I relate to. So we hone in, and understand.
Right. Isn't quite what I'm talking about. I'm referring to specifically, Deja made a point of, we created this culture. Within the video is what you say, we created this culture, but we are being excluded from it. And that's, to me, everything else you're saying, yes, it holds true. I can understand your viewpoint on it, but I am more countering that culture was also being created at the same time, very similarly around the diaspora, and we wasn't just co-opting Black American culture. That's the thing, specifically where you have the youth culture movement in the UK and Black influences from the Caribbean and African actually making what we now call Black British culture. Has elements of American, but it's not the same. And also it was happening at the same time that you see it in Jamaica, you see it in Uganda, you see that there's lots of different ways that aren't necessarily Black American. So when we are participating in a space that lots of people have been fighting for it to be inclusive, not just Black Americans, we also had a whole anti-colonialist movement going on throughout Africa. It all happens at the same time, but it feels like these talking points aren't allowed to be carried through because it feels like we should bow down to Black Americans. And it's like, how we were doing movements too. And it's like, that can't be said or we're being disrespectful. That's how it kind of feels, where we can't have a symbiotic conversation with each other, where I am a Pan-Africanist, so I actually do want our unification without shitting on what you're saying, but also think of the other side of people were creating culture as well and do want to participate in this global space that was dominated by Black Americans at one time. And what I feel like is being rebelled against is the space being shared. Top line of it all.
Wait, okay? So basically, America has taught Americans to believe that America is the center of the world, and that is a fact. I live in America. I cannot tell you what's going on. Every time my mom calls me, she's like, wasn't it on the news? Wasn't it? What? Don't you know what's going on in England? Wasn't it on the news? I'm like, no, mum, because America does not show me English news. America don't care about English news. America don't even care about American news. America just shows me what's going on in LA. Literally, I don't even know what's going on in Texas or other states. Like, America is too big. They care about themselves. I have a joke where I say, America is the Florida of the world. Americans will get this. That's how, you see how Americans think Florida is? That's how the world thinks America is. And so essentially, we look at America, the rest of the world looks at America and they think that America is stupid because America acts like America is the be all and end all, but the rest of the world know that it isn't. And so by default, Black Americans may think that way. Not only that, Black Americans are aware that their Black American culture has been exported all over the world and is aware that the whole world has their eyes on them. And again, if you're in a country and you're aware that the whole world has their eyes on you, but you aren't aware of any of them, you're going to believe subconsciously or consciously that it's because you are the best or you are better. And it's not necessarily true. It's actually because you're the most popular. So like, America is like, you know the kid in school, yeah? There's a kid in school and he's popular. But he thinks he's popular because he's good at maths or he's good at science or he can do cartwheels or he's really funny or he can burp the alphabet. He thinks he's popular for that. But he's actually popular because he's the only kid in school with a pool. And everybody wants to use his pool. That's what America is. Like, Black Americans think that, not all of them, some of them on this app think that they're the best at what they do. And it's not to say Black Americans aren't exceptional, because they are. They're just not more exceptional than the rest of the Black diaspora. The thing is, they are being exceptional in a country that has the world's eyes on it. And the reason why America has the world's eyes on it is because all the money and power from slavery went to America. And Americans are living in America. You literally live, Black Americans live in a country that has been propped up the most by slavery. But let's be clear, the difference between America and like Jamaica and all the other countries is because all the money from Caribbean slavery didn't go to the Caribbean. If the money from Caribbean slavery went to the Caribbean and the Caribbean was propped up like America, then all eyes would be on the Caribbean as well. If the money from African colonization went to Africa instead of Europe, and Africa was propped up by colonization and slavery, just like America is, the whole world's eyes would be on Africa. But because the only country that has a predominantly like big black community in it that has been propped up the most by slavery and had the money actually returned back to the country is America, that is why America is a superpower way it is. But that doesn't mean that black Americans are somehow more exceptional than black people from other countries. Unfortunately, the money from Caribbean slavery went to Europe, and the money from the colonization of Africa went to Europe. And Europe is a super continent, but it's a predominantly white continent. So the black people in those countries in Europe really they don't have a leg to stand on. They're immigrants. But in America, just like in Jamaica, the black people that were born in America like did great things and set standards and broke down walls and barriers, and they should be celebrated for that. And I feel like the world does celebrate black Americans for that. But don't think that black Americans are somehow better than the rest of the diaspora, because no one's better than anyone. None of us. No one in the diaspora thinks that, I mean, maybe people like jokingly think it, but no, like most of the diaspora understand that we're all interlinked. So no one can really be better than anyone, because we're all mixed. We're all essentially African and we're all essentially Caribbean. We're just a melting pot. But America seems to other itself sometimes. As a diaspora, we kind of know that the main bitch, the main person in charge of everything is Africa, because that's where we're all from. We've all, whether you're black British, black German, Caribbean, African, we all understand that. So we just assume that America understood that too. And what we're finding out through TikTok and through things like this is that some people in America do not believe that their blackness is linked to Africa. And then there's also pushback because, you know, they know that America might have shown black Americans in not a positive light, and there's a need to hold on to the culture, there's a need to preserve their culture, etc. But all these things are valid, but on top of it, we just think we're all one. Someone asked me on this app, why is it that like black Brits can feel the need to play our American heroes? Like, why don't they feel shame in playing our American heroes? And I'm like, because you think your American heroes are just yours. They're not, they're also ours. Like, my heroes were Martin Luther King growing up too. So it's like, yes, they are black American people, but they're black people first. And so black Brits are also black people first. So like, it doesn't matter, you're black. So they're not gonna, I see myself in black Americans because you're black and I'm black. Like, everybody is one. And I think the rest of the diaspora realize that. And the sooner America realizes it, like in its entirety, I know a lot of Americans, obviously, a lot of black Americans understand this, but as soon as like black Americans on TikTok understand this, the diaspora wars will be over. People need to give black Americans some grace and understand that they're operating from a different space. Give them grace. And black Americans.
All right, here you have another delusional black Brit who clearly doesn't know what she's talking about. See, what she's doing is projecting her own inferiority, complex, and insecurities on us. We're not the ones going around saying that we're better than anyone. Where does that even come from? We're not saying that. The world seems to believe that we, as Black Americans, are the most influential people on the planet. We have no control of that. We just do what we do. And the world just responds to that. So we're not the ones doing that. So to come at us and attacking us as if we're causing division is totally misplaced. For example, she used geography as a reason, because we're born in America, that somehow that gives us an advantage. Clearly, she doesn't know the history of American music. So let me take this moment and educate this lady or this particular female about the history of Black American music. We know it originally as race records.
You ever wonder why American music is so deeply Black? But the industry acts like it isn't. Yeah? Let's talk about race records. Because the truth is, the industry didn't just profit off of black music. It literally segregated it, renamed it, and sold it back to white audiences. So here's how it went down. Back in the 1920s, record labels didn't even try to hide it. They stamped race records on everything that black musicians made. Blues, jazz, gospel, it didn't matter. If it was made by a black artist, that's where it went. They didn't market it to white audiences. They didn't play it on white radio stations. They locked it away in its own corner, out of sight, out of mind. But it wasn't because the music wasn't good. It was because they didn't want white America buying black culture while pretending that they didn't want us around. They knew the music was too good to ignore. They just didn't want us to have the credit. But the music was selling. Black communities were buying records. Artists like Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, they were undeniable. They toured, they packed venues. They proved that there was real money in this. So the industry did what it always does. It rebranded. In the late 1940s, Billboard dropped the term race records, and they renamed it Rhythm and Blues. Sounds more polite, right? But don't get it twisted. This wasn't about respect. It was about expansion. About making the music marketable to white teens without admitting where it came from. And that's where the real game began. Record labels started pushing white artists to cover black songs. Pat Boone covering Little Richard, all so it could get radio play that the original never would. They wanted the sound, the vibe, just not the blackness. And they didn't stop there. They told black artists to tone it down, lose the slang, make it smoother, make it acceptable. They wanted the energy, but sanitized. They wanted black art without black truth. And this formula didn't stop. It worked so well that they used it over and over again. Soul, rock and roll, hip hop. They always asked, how do we sell black culture but keep the profits in our pockets? How do we make it palatable to the people that don't want to see us? But here's what they didn't plan for. Black artists kept pushing. We didn't just accept it, we innovated. Turned R&B into soul, soul into funk, funk into hip hop. We kept creating sounds that they couldn't control, no matter how hard they tried. Because every time they tried to box us in, we just broke out. Every time they tried to erase us, we got louder. They could rename it all they wanted to, but they couldn't kill what made it real. So next time somebody tells you that music is universal, it speaks to everyone, remember who paid the price for making it that way. Remember who got left off the radio, out of the contracts, off the charts. Race records wasn't just a category. It was a line they drew to keep us out. And the truth is that we crossed it anyway, not because they let us, but because they couldn't stop us.
Now let me add on to what the young lady just said. This is very interesting. American race music, a precursor to rock and roll, reached the UK through American servicemen and sailors bringing their records and through the live performances of American musicians touring Europe in the post-war era. These records featuring rhythm and blues, early rockabilly, were sought out by British youth, especially in the port cities like Liverpool and London, who then incorporated these sounds to create the foundation for the British invasion. This proves that this particular female doesn't understand the history, doesn't know the history of Black Americans. She's merely reacting purely on emotion, because she views this whole thing as competition. Again, that's what this is all about. They want to be on the same level, or they want to be beyond us. They're tired. Like I said before, they're tired of being second place, third place. They want to be first. And so this is where these attacks are coming from. But let me remind you, listen, if you believe in the Bible, you should understand this. God does not allocate talents and gifts equally, right? Some people are good at math. Some people are good at sports. It varies. So there's going to be influential people and there are going to be people who are not that influential. For whatever reason, God decided that Black Americans were going to be the most influential people on the planet. That goes for every race. More importantly, the Black race. We are the most influential for whatever reason. That may be something that you will never be able to change. We've been doing this for over 100 years. or even longer. So you had opportunities to produce, like I said before, produce. But I just believe that things are the way they are because it's just designed to be that way. There's no reason to get all upset about the fact that Black Americans appear to be the most influential people on the planet. You guys need therapy because you guys are suffering from some inferiority complex or something. Y'all make sure you thumb up this video, share this information, and if you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe. So until the next time, peace.
This brother here, myself, all of us were born with our hair like this, and we just wear it like this because it's natural, because the reason for it, you might say, is like a new awareness among Black people that their own natural appearance, physical appearance is beautiful and it's pleasing to them. For so many, many years, we were told that only white people were beautiful. Only straight hair, light eyes, light skin was beautiful. And so Black women would try everything they could, straighten their hair, lighten their skin to look as much like white women. But this has changed because Black people are aware. And white people are aware of it too because white people now want natural wigs. They want wigs like this. Dig it? Isn't it beautiful? All right.